I guess we're live. That didn't work the way I intended. Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather Chubb with Chubb Law Firm, and our superpower is working with seniors who need some help navigating the legal, financial, and care situations, particularly families where there's been a diagnosis of dementia. One of the big issues that we run into with our clients is trying to find the right care setting. And so I thought it'd be really helpful for everybody if I had a specialist on. And so welcoming today, Christine with Senior Care Solutions. She's one of my favorite go-to people. And we're going to talk about how do you choose the right care setting for your loved one and for your family. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning.
The first thing is, what do you look for when choosing a placement agent? And maybe one step back, like, what is a placement agent? Why would you want to use one?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think, what in general, and I'll speak to what we think a placement agency is, and it's somebody to help you navigate and just really determine what are the best care options, and of those care options, which ones would best suit your needs. So we really think people should look for a senior placement agency that's local, that is going to be able to help you navigate, again, the local resources, help do an assessment, provide guidance and support through the whole journey, not just until you find the right placement, but beyond that, if there's challenges, that they'll provide support and advocacy for you throughout the journey of finding the right resources.
Great. And so it is a journey. And sometimes that first placement isn't a great fit. Is that, you run into that a lot?
I mean, that's always our goal. But, as I tell some folks, our needs change, people change. Even with my own family members, assisted living was a great option for 3+ years for my husband's grandma, who I was a healthcare power of attorney. But as she became a lot more frail and a fall risk, we did move her to a board and care. So ideally, you look for a long-term solution, but we know that that's not always going to be the lifelong solution, but it's a goal for sure.
Okay, great. So what does your process look like with your agency, and does it differ from the process from other agencies?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the good local agencies, and I say local because I think that's one thing that is really important, is to work with somebody who's boots on the ground. There's lots of national online referral agencies, but they don't necessarily know the facilities locally like a local agency. So the process, at least with our agency, is customized based on the needs of the client. We like to say that we're client-centered, as far as there's no cookie cutter approach. So most people reach out to us and we'll do an initial phone intake. And that might be an extensive phone intake, or we'll determine that the best option is to schedule an assessment, go out and meet the individual that they're looking for placement for, really get our eyes on to determine the best solution for that person. That's not always possible, or the family's not quite ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's just an in-depth telephone intake process, or having them come in for a meeting in our office. So it really can look a little bit different for everybody. But once we get a really true picture of that person, then we're going to guide them through what are the resources, what are the options, whether it's in-home care, adult daycare, or ultimately placement, which is a lot of what we do. And we'll provide those options for them. We'll help them get physicians' reports. We'll schedule tours. We'll take them touring. Again, whatever works best for them. Everybody's so different in how much involvement they want or how little involvement. And we're going to respect that for each of our clients. Ultimately, when they locate and find that place through working very intimately with one of our family care consultants, we will help them with the final steps of planning the move, getting all the necessary paperwork. And then ultimately, one of the things we think makes us different is that our job doesn't stop just when they finally find that right solution. Is we're going to follow up and make sure things are working. And if there is hiccups, we're going to offer to have a care meeting with the facility, or whatever we can do to help the family along the way, because we know there's never going to be a perfect scenario. So we try to set realistic expectations too.
Great. So you mentioned that it's important to choose an agency that's local. So what are some of the questions that somebody would ask when kind of filtering through that selection process and figuring out who they want to work with?
Sure. Some of the important questions would be, how long have they been in business? There's a lot of people who think what we do is easy and they start referral agencies. We know it's not, having done this for quite some time. So how long have they been in business? Another really important question is, what is the experience of the team? Are they credentialed? Have they been in the senior care world for many years? And the other side of it too is, is it a team? Is it just one person working out of their car? Or is it a team approach? Because we know with literally in Sacramento County, well over 500 licensed assisted living and board and care homes, we kind of are amazed that sometimes there's one person who really can have in-depth knowledge. So, work with a company that has a team approach so that it's a big scope of services, which is the other question is, what are their scope of services? Do they have experience working with low income or Medi-Cal? Can they advise on that? Do they have other resources besides just facility placement? Referrals to people like you, or, the knowledge of their care consultants to really go into a full scope of services. Do they tour the facilities? Do they provide additional education and knowledge? What is their reputation in the community? Did you do a little research? Have you talked to some folks who've worked with them? So
what kind of credentialings are important to look for in a placement agency?
I think number one would be experience in the senior care world, but also, like myself, I'm a geriatric care manager, have been in the field for well over 25 years. Our team is made up of social workers, geriatric care managers. On our assisted living waiver side of the business, we have nurses. So we have a very full scope of credentialed individuals that work in our office.
Great. I know it's slightly off topic, but I think it's really important. Can you tell our audience what a geriatric care manager is and what they do? And because in my opinion, they're like the superstars that you need to find when you are looking,
Sure.
you need help with your elder. And,
Yeah.
I had that experience of having to do it long distance when my mom was on the East Coast. So tell us about the geriatric care manager superstars.
Yeah, and I am a certified geriatric care manager. I noticed, I think you're having Gail on next week.
Mhm.
So I don't act as a true hands-on geriatric care manager in the sense of where people hire and have us kind of, I always say they're the son or daughter when there is no son or daughter locally. They're a godsent when they're acting as a care manager, but it's just an additional level of training and experience to really understand and manage the needs of an elder. And Gail, who is going to be on next week, I believe, is phenomenal, and we work hand in hand with agencies like that. So specifically elder care management for folks who need to hire somebody to go to doctor's appointments, to, really get in hands-on and manage the care.
Okay. So in the placement world, having the background as a geriatric care manager, that's important because it gives you more insight into evaluating what people's proper placement needs would be. Is that
Absolutely. And
that?
that's why
Okay.
too, several of our other family consultants are social workers,
Mhm.
so again, they have that in-depth knowledge and education that really helps them guide families through the journey with
Okay.
empathy and compassion too.
Great, great. So you indicated that Senior Care Solutions offers uh, a multitude of services. Can you
Mhm.
tell us what those big services are? Obviously, placement.
Sure.
But
Yep.
what else?
Yeah, so, just a little bit about who we are and why work with us or, and we mentioned questions if you're going to work with somebody else, but we've been in business, it'll be 28 years this January, so we've been around for a long time. As I mentioned, we have a full team, but the other unique thing is we do have a full scope of services in the sense that our office is also a care coordinating agency for the state of California for the assisted living waiver program, which is a whole nother topic, but
Mhm.
it is a Medi-Cal program. So we are able to help people who have little or no resources get on a program like the assisted living waiver program. And then kind of also through the full spectrum, people who have resources,
Mhm.
who want the very upscale chandeliers and marble and all that. But also, the small board and care homes, we're very intimately knowledgeable about those as well, because we're always out in the community touring new homes, getting to know the new ones that are coming online. We're the other thing that's important is having an agency, as I mentioned multiple times, that has a team, because
Mhm.
we're available 24/7. We have an on-call line. We know that sometimes situations change overnight, and sometimes you need somebody to call, and it could be 10 o'clock on a Saturday, and you need some resources. We also pride ourselves in just having really high ethical standards, which is important in this business. And then we also give back to the community. I'm on the board of the Parkinson's Association. I've served as on the board of the Delaware Caregiver Resource Center, the Alzheimer's Association. We do monthly education. So we have a monthly education series at Divine Savior Church in Orangevale. We do a quarterly one in Lincoln. We do an annual clergy event to educate clergy on how to help their congregation with this elder care journey, as we
Mhm.
refer to it. So we really try to just be a broad scope of services for anybody who calls us.
Great. And so I know one question that a lot of people have is how do you get compensated? Because certainly you're not working for free, right?
Right, absolutely. So there's 2 ways, when the being a care coordinating agency for the state, we do get some reimbursement from the state for the Medi-Cal recipients who we have in the assisted living waiver program. Through the other side of the business, where we help just with placement, it is a free service to families. The way we're able to offer the services free is that the facilities pay us a referral fee. That being said, we work with pretty much every facility out there if they're appropriate. And even there's a few that do not contract, we still will refer if it's the appropriate placement for somebody.
Okay. And is that typically how placement agents get compensated is through a referral fee from the
Yes, it is. And so
facility?
yeah, and that's why it's also important to look at referral agencies that don't own their own facilities or have some kind of other attachment like that to certain facilities, because that can be a little bit of a conflict of interest.
Okay. And do you feel that that's one of the primary reasons why someone would it may be preferable to work with a local agency rather than maybe one of the more national ones?
Yeah, I think, the main thing that we see with the national ones is that a lot of their representatives aren't local, have never stepped foot into the care facilities they're referring to. They may not even be in your area, so their ability to meet with you, to tour with you, to assess your loved one, and also, you definitely would want to question what their experience is, as far as the individual that you might talk to on the phone.
How long does the process take if there's anything such thing as a typical placement process?
Yeah, I don't know that there is a typical, we'll get a call on today on a Friday at 2 o'clock and somebody's in the ER and they're not going to admit them, but they can't take them home. We can do things as quickly as within a few hours. That's not ideal for anybody involved, but we can. Um, and I always tell a story about I actually helped a practicing attorney with his 59-year-old wife who was diagnosed with dementia, and
Mm,
we walked the journey together for 6 years. We did in-home care, we did adult daycare, we did more in-home care, till ultimately after 6 years when she no longer knew who he was, we already had lined up where he wanted to place her. So, on average, it's usually 2 to 4 weeks, but it can be
mhm.
really quick, and it can be longer. So we really encourage people to plan and not wait for that crisis situation if at all possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that you were there for that client's whole journey,
Mhm.
and thanks for sharing, it kind of morphed along the way as it often does,
Yes.
right? Um, what is the biggest hurdle that, you families kind of face when looking at placement? And I know from my perspective, I hear a lot, I just want to stay at home.
Yeah.
And I do
Yeah.
know, changing living situations is it's very difficult.
It is, and I just met with a couple yesterday and their daughter, and, their goal is to stay at home.
Mhm,
But the reality is, for most folks, as they age and start having care needs, the cost of in-home care is astronomical. It's anywhere from 37 to $40 an hour is kind of what we quote right now. And
mhm,
so we typically see it that 4 to 6 hours a day is that tipping point where it makes sense to start looking at assisted living or out of care home options. So, it really is cost is really the biggest barrier for some folks. 24-hour in-home care is over $30,000 a month. And so even folks who can afford it typically don't choose to go
mhm.
that route. But if they can, that's great. And we can help them with those resources too.
Great, great. Um, if you were to have the ability to kind of prepare the people that are coming to you, what would be the two big things that you would want them to do or to know
Mhm.
before they hired a care placement agency?
So, I think the two things would be, again, just, do your research on who you're hiring, and come to the table with realistic expectations. And a lot of that is, we do a lot of educating families because we'll sometimes get this list of, I want these 10 things non-negotiable, and I want it for this dollar amount. And that may not exist. We're going to do our best to meet the expectations, but I always say try as a family to number one know what your line in the sand is as to when you're going to place someone. For some people it's incontinence, some people it's when their own health is suffering. So think a little bit about that, but also think about what are the primary things that are super important to me. Is it location? Is
Mhm,
it, finances? What are the top 3 priorities? We'll try to look at the other ones, but, for myself, we moved my mom. I live in Auburn. We placed her in Orangevale, so location wasn't ideal,
mhm.
but what her needs were best met in Orangevale. But for some folks, if it's a spouse who is gonna see that person every day, being within 5 minutes is really important. So
Sure.
everybody's a little bit different in what's important to them and their situation.
Great. And I'm presuming you take the family through all of that. If they haven't really thought through that, you're going to help them think about all of those things because
Absolutely.
I know with my father-in-law, like a 20-minute drive, it's not just a 20-minute drive. It's 20 minutes there. It's the time you spend. It's 20 minutes back. And So location, it really is important too.
Sure. For a
And I
lot of
think almost everybody doesn't really take that into account.
right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, great. Any other parting words of wisdom for families out there that may be thinking about using a care placement agency, or they've just had a diagnosis of, a stroke or Parkinson's, dementia, anything like that where care might be on the horizon?
Right. Start planning. It's never too, at least for our office, too early to reach out to us and come in and have a meeting like the gentleman who I gave a reference to. He came to my office and said, I don't know what I don't know. I just know
Mhm.
this is going to be a journey. And although we had to shift gears multiple times, at least he knew he had me in his corner when those things happen. So start planning. Doesn't mean the original plan is going to always work out, but we can always shift gears. So don't wait for the crisis.
Great, great. Oh, Christine, this has been phenomenal. I so appreciate you coming on this morning, and I learned a tidbit or two as well. And honestly, I can't say enough about Senior Care Solutions. You truly are one of my favorite placement agencies to
Thank,
work with, and it really is the fact that you are local, and you're out there and looking at those facilities and really know what's out there. I've
thank you.
always felt that's super important. So,
Oh, we appreciate it and
yeah,
enjoy working with you.
yeah, and thank you for being here so early in the morning too.
Oh,
I
no
appreciate
worries.
that.
No worries. Thank you for
Great.
having me.
So, if you are a family that thinks they need placement, please reach out to Christine at Senior Care Solutions. Go on their website, check them out. They have a lot of resources there. And if you have an interest in elder law, estate planning, this elder care navigation journey, please reach out to my office at Chubb Law Firm. And we are delighted to work with families that have those needs.
Absolutely.
All
Thank
right.